One of the things that's sort of really arisen in the last 10 years in the emerging church is this idea that love wins. And in the old understanding of the gospel, that just didn't quite make sense. It didn't sort of resonate with the story. But as I began seeing the idea that God is actually appeasing my sense of justice and God is meeting my demands on the cross, love wins completely was redefined for me. And what happened to change that is really a sense of the cross is this massive event where we're actually killing the God image in our midst. Okay, that's what's happening in the cross. We see the whole child of God. Said, okay, here we have this perfect human being, someone who's remained whole. And it's not really about perfect, it's about being whole. And we kill him. In other words, the fullest expression of evil is to actually kill the God image in our midst, to kill the God image in ourself. That's what we're attempting to do. That's the fullest expression of evil. And the cross is saying, okay, is that it? That's how far you can go. And guess what? I still love you. And when I saw it that way, I began to really understand love really does win. There is nothing we can do to make God stop loving us. That God even overcomes death, evil, the worst we can do, the worst we can imagine, and says, I will not stop loving you. But you don't have to accept that reality. You don't have to accept the idea that you are good. That's the only thing. It goes back to the Garden of Eden, back to the tree of knowledge, back to the test. And so what we see is this story of it beginning with a test and it ending with a test. That God is saying, you've got all the evidence you need. Are you the one who overcomes the judgment? Are you the one who gets the question right? Are you the one who overcomes your own sense of judgment for yourself and can see from God's perspective, can embrace the God imagination to say, yes, I am loved. And that is a sense of salvation. That is a sense of being resurrected, to be informed by God's original design for your life. One of the things that I felt was that our historical understanding of the garden created a fundamental problem that actually disconnects us from the power of the gospel. Historically, we see the garden as an event in time. It happened. Somebody in time did something that we had no part in, yet we suffer the consequences and even the punishment for. And even after the cross, the problem doesn't seem to go away. Humanity still seems captivated. And so when Jesus arrives and solves the problem, it's still an event in time that we had no part of. And we're supposed to feel good about what God did because we're disconnected from it, because it happened way back there somewhere. And we end up wondering why we're supposed to care. I wanted to participate with God. I wanted to engage God's mission. But if the mission is God satisfying his own sense of justice, I can't participate in that. If the mission is us being released from captivity to Satan, I can't participate in that. But if the mission is God reconciling my own sense of judgment regarding myself and the world and even God, that I can participate in. I can actually engage with God in changing my own sense of reality. And I'm not making something true. I'm simply discovering what is already true. I'm taking off the covers of the blinders, per se, that keeps me from seeing reality. And in order to reconcile that, we have to go back and essentially engage God's love. Solving the problem was as simple as seeing it from God's perspective, that there was nothing we could do to change God's love for us. And when we begin to frame the problem correctly, we begin to essentially unleash the great commandment in our lives. We begin to understand that to love is to see from God's perspective. It's get the original question right. It's to see reality that within each human being is the image of God. And love calls that out and says, it is good. And it looks at each human being, even the enemy, and says, you are loved. I see you from God's perspective, that you are not defined by circumstance.